Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media for HAR, and I am joined by a very familiar face to this program, our HAR MLS Project Manager, Nathan Goble. Welcome back to the show, Nathan.
Thank you so much for having me, Christina. It's always a pleasure.
I'm really excited that you could join us. It's been quite some time since you've been on our program, so we thought it was a good time for you to come back, share some updates, some things that have already taken place and some changes that have already taken place in Matrix, but also some great features that are coming soon that I'm excited for you to share with our members. But before we get started, I do want to have you just quickly introduce yourself, a little bit about who you are and what you do at HAR.
Well, certainly. I've been with HAR for more than 18 years, and I'm responsible for the implementation of all projects related to the MLS. I also lead the quality assurance team that's responsible for enforcing MLS rules and regulations and assisting members with day-to-day usage of the MLS.
All right, very good. And we all appreciate the hard work that you and your team do. It really is, the backbone, I should say, of our association. So it is, I know it's a lot. I want to talk a little bit about some of the work that you guys do. I know that your department has been very busy over the last year with an increase of service from members. Can you tell us about those services?
We've been busier than we've ever been. We continue to be open 7 days a week, offering assistance by phone, chat, and email to our members. On the weekends, we're open from 9:30 to 3 via the same thing for chat and phone. We also offer labs every Wednesday and Friday from 10 to 12. Anyone who logs into the lab will have an opportunity to work with HAR staff to get answers to their questions or quick how-to tips or various walkthroughs related to HAR tools or the Matrix MLS system. And just to give an idea of how busy the quality assurance team was in 2021, we handled more than 51,000 phone calls, 30,000 emails, and 7,300 chats, totaling more than 90,000 interactions with our members.
Wow.
That's the highest it's ever been in our department.
That is amazing. And thank you for sharing those numbers. I'm sure some of the members that are tuning in this morning are part of that number of people that have called in for support. Now, we've had a huge increase in membership really since March 2020, almost 15,000 members.
Right.
That increase in membership, has that caused an increase in hold times?
Not really. One of the most important aspects of phone support is to keep the hold time down without compromising quality that our members are used to and have always been used to. And over the past 4 years, our average hold time has always stayed below 1 minute. We monitor our phone statistics on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis to ensure that quality is being maintained for our members. And, last year we answered 51,000 phone calls. The average hold time was below 50 seconds in the quality assurance department for the entire year. And just last week, showing the weekly, it was 28 seconds. So we're keeping it under 30 seconds right now this year, which is a market improvement from that. It's truly a testament to the quality assurance team's ability to handle our members and take care of them every single day. Now, there are some days that the hold time is going to be higher than others. There's, certain spikes, like with the active key change that we had last year, where we get a higher influx of calls. So our IT department implemented a new feature that our members seem to really appreciate, which is you can park your place in line and have the system call you back when a representative is available, rather than continue to hold until a representative is available.
That's wonderful. That is an excellent feature. We actually had a comment from Aniti. She said that labs are super helpful. So they're enjoying
Glad to
those
hear that.
labs. Yeah, absolutely. And just some of those features, I just think they're wonderful. The chat, the hold your place in line. There's just so many different ways to get support from you guys, and I think that's wonderful. Tanya said she uses a chat feature, which has an amazing response. So they are enjoying the services that your team is offering. So thank you for that, Nathan.
That's wonderful news to hear.
Absolutely. So we get some questions sometimes on social media specifically. I see it all of the time about how do you report MLS violations, or the best way to report MLS violations. Some people think that making a post on social media is the way to do it, but can you explain that process and what the easiest, most efficient way is?
Well, you can certainly use social media to report a violation, but the best and most effective way to report MLS violations is to use the report data error button in Matrix. This feature will capture the listing information, your selected violation, and any notes you include with it, and add it to our listing data checker queue. Our listing data checker queue is what our staff uses to moderate all the listings that are added and edited in the MLS on a daily basis. And we normally review those reported violations within 1 business day, depending on the volume. In 2021, we had almost 10,000 listing violations were reported using that tool alone. And overall, we processed more than 93,000 violations that were identified either by the system, by members, or consumers. And so in addition to the tool, you can also report violations at mlsqa@har.com, or you can call. And of course, you can use social media.
So consumers can actually report violations as well?
They do. Consumers call us almost every single day to report various issues. Now, they're not as knowledgeable in real estate as our members are, so some of their complaints are not valid, but that does not stop them from calling. Okay. And we will look into everything, or we will confirm with them that it's not a violation. And maybe they understand, maybe they don't, but we see them to the end.
And there's an education piece there, so that's excellent as well. So out of curiosity, and I think it's important for our members to hear this so that they can avoid them, what are some of the most frequent violations that you're currently seeing?
Well, the number one, starting with the most frequently reported is various items on a listing. And these are normally identified when you're a buyer's agent and you're looking at properties for your client. And when you go to show the home, there's a discrepancy between what was on the listing and what's in the actual house. And you can use the report it tool to report it. Anything that an agent puts into the MLS can be subject to review and can be notified for a violation. And so y'all do a great job of reporting that. It was more than 5,000 compliancy reviews from members on various aspects. After that, its invalid photograph is a frequently used one. People will report when there's a yard sign that's visible on the property, on a property picture that has the phone number or contact information, or it's photoshopped and it removes a power line that's in the back behind the backyard when there actually is a power line there, and that creates a serious disruption when you show your client and they see not a pretty sunset but rather cables. That's a big change. Listing in wrong property classes, when someone puts a townhouse in single family, they'll report those so that they can be in the right property class. And then the last two, invalid agent remarks, they constantly report about either commission statements in the agent remarks or title information being in the agent remarks, and those are against the rules. And last, failing to report pending. And because our market's so hot, this one has been climbing the charts, is you get a contract that needs to go under pending. While the rules state you have 3 days, you should really do it as soon as possible out of respect to your peers, because their clients, as well as the agents, are seeing an active listing when it's not really active.
That makes sense. I hear a lot about that one on social media as well.
In this market, absolutely.
Yeah. And Nathan, thank you for reviewing those. I think it's important for our members to hear, but there are a lot of MLS rules. Where can they find those MLS rules to review them?
The easiest place is when you log into Matrix and you go to external links on the homepage. There's a link right there for MLS rules and regulations. If you're not in Matrix, when you're inside the members only portal, there's a search bar at the top. If you just type in MLS rules, it's going to come right up for you right there. And you can access those at any time.
Wonderful. I like the document that you guys have, the top MLS rules to remember.
Yes. That's my favorite.
That one's very helpful because, as I said, there's a lot of rules, but those you kind of pick out the ones, and those I believe are the ones that are most commonly violated.
Correct. And I'm glad you brought that up. The top rules to remember for anyone that may not have looked at it, that is what I call the easy mode of the rules and regulations, where our rules and regulations documents 53 pages. The top rules to remember is 4. And it's only covering the most frequently offended rules or the most important rules that are inside the MLS itself. And they're also translated into more easier to understand terms.
Very good. We have a question that came in from Rachel. She just asked, can you clarify the rule about status change with regards to delivery of earnest funds?
When it comes to the MLS, the contract is executed once it's signed. Once it's signed by all parties, and the delivery of the funds does not have an impact on it. The 3 days starts when all parties sign and the execution date is entered on that contract. So you have 3 days from that date. The earnest money, the delivery of funds, is a performance of the contract and is not really what actually makes the contract exist. Mm-hmm. Failure to provide those funds is what would put the buyer potentially in default of the contract itself.
Okay. Hopefully that answered your question there, Rachel. And if there are any other questions for Nathan, you can type them in. I have a lot more questions for Nathan as well, but if you guys have questions for Nathan, please type those in and we will get to as many of those as we can. Nathan, as you know, there continues to be confusion around clear cooperation and coming soon listings. Can you review the clear cooperation and coming soon rules? And also, how are those violations reported?
Good question. This has been a topic of contention, confusion over the past 2 years. This policy was an NAR policy implemented back in May 1st, 2020, and here we are in 2022. We're still trying to get it clarified. And it's because we have a lot of members. A lot of members this doesn't impact. And when it does, that's when they become educated on it. And clear cooperation is the policy set by NAR that requires a property that has been publicly marketed. And publicly marketed is the key phrase in this whole policy in defining it. Public marketing is anything outside of your office communications. Is that a Facebook post? Yes. A yard sign? Yes. A tweet? Yes. An email to a bunch of clients that aren't in your firm? Yes. A private group chat? Yes. That's all public marketing, and it all triggers it. And the biggest one that confuses or seems to stymie members is the yard sign. Once you put that yard sign in the yard, you've publicly marketed. Mm-hmm. And once you publicly market, you have one business day to put the listing in the MLS. Not one calendar day, not 24 hours. You have one business day. And that's exactly as the clear cooperation policy states from NAR. Now, one way of satisfying that rule is to list the property in the coming soon status. And that's where the next piece of confusion comes in, is that coming soon and clear cooperation aren't the same thing. Mm-hmm. Coming soon is a status that's in the MLS, and clear cooperation is a policy. You can put a listing into coming soon to satisfy clear cooperation, but to satisfy clear cooperation, you just need to put it in the MLS and not in the incomplete status. So with coming soon, we made a few changes, and I thought use this opportunity to clarify it. You can now be in coming soon up to 21 days. And if you don't make any changes after that, the system will automatically make your listing active on the 22nd day. And it's important to note that while you can continue to market a property that's in the coming soon status, you can't have showings or open houses. And if you are going to have showings or open houses, you need to change that listing to the active status ASAP.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. So you said one business day. So if you were to put out a sign on a Friday, it either needs to be in coming soon or active status on Monday. Is that what you're saying? All right.
Yep. After Monday, they're in violation.
After Monday, they're in violation. Very good. Okay, so we had a couple questions that came in. Demetria, going back to incorrect information within the listing, she mentioned directions. She said that this is something that frequently, or if she finds are incorrect, let us know the proper insertion in this category and if CGPS is acceptable.
I can immediately say CGPS is not acceptable.
Okay.
Our data checker that I mentioned earlier specifically seeks out GPS. And while in a mature neighborhood like where I live, the average home is 40 years old, obviously you can rely on GPS to get you to my house. If it's a new construction or something in the past 2 years, GPS can be wildly unreliable. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of the directions is to be able to get you to that house. And when it comes to land and new construction, those directions are critical to getting you there. So CGPS is not allowed. As far as directions go, you have to start from a major thoroughfare. That's what the rules say. And so if you start from a freeway or from a major artery type road and then guide to the house from there, that will satisfy the rule. But if you say things simply like on Westheimer, that's gonna get picked up by the system, and we're gonna notify. If you say use Google Maps or use GPS, the system's gonna pick that up as well. And yes, we have it for Yahoo Maps and Bing Maps and I think even Expedia, just in case.
MapQuest?
Yes, MapQuest. We do have that. We do have that. Yep. It only came up once last year, but MapQuest is still on the list.
There we go. Well, very good. And I think that's important. And thank you, Demetria, for bringing that up, because I think maybe some listing agents see the directions as a nicety, but as you're saying, this is critical information, especially in new construction areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. So Leslie has a question here. She said, can someone who does not hold a license post a property in the MLS with their information as the listing agent?
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You have to be licensed to list a property in the MLS. And if for some reason, I mean, I won't say it's 100% foolproof, but if for some reason you find a listing with a listing agent that is not licensed, not only can you use the report it button, but you can email it to me directly so we can take immediate action. And my email is simply nathan@har.com.
Very good. Thank you. And we did put the MLS email address in the chat for you guys. We can put that in there again. And also we'll put Nathan's email address in there for anybody who needs to reach out to him. Another question here about coming soon. Why can't the public see the coming soon? So you mentioned that no appointments, no open houses. Why is that?
Normally it's because coming soon means it's not ready to be seen. And that's currently the board policy. If in this case you feel that coming soon should be visible to the consumer, outside of you marketing it on, when you find it in the MLS, because you can do that. You can share the listing to your client. It's just not widely available. That would be, I would encourage you to reach out to someone at the MLS advisory group to have the policy be reviewed. We're always willing to review policies and rules and see if changes can be made to satisfy the market needs.
Very good. I know you're not going to believe this, but we have more questions about coming soon. Ashley said, do coming soon days count towards the DOM or CDOM?
They do not.
All
they
right.
do not at all.
Excellent. Kelly said, on coming soon, can a homeowner show the house to an agent and their client?
Well, see, that's where things get tricky with the policy, right? I mean, we're only talking about what the agent can do. Homeowners are not subject to our rules. So can they show it? I mean, yeah, there's no stopping a homeowner from doing what they're going to do. They shouldn't. And if you become aware of it, I'd make the listing active. Because now your client has put you in a precarious position, because it's a he said, she said story, right? Because now you're going to expect the buyer's agent to believe that this was all the homeowner's doing and you had nothing to do with it. And in the current market conditions, they're disinclined to believe that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few more questions here, and then we'll get back to some of the other questions I had for you. I do see your question, Manaz. I'm going to get back to that because we're going to talk about Matrix features in a little bit. But going back to directions, Vipan said, can you put directions and put to use the GPS?
That's a great clarification. If you put your directions and then also suggest GPS, absolutely. Our system is only notifying when you only say to use the GPS or see GPS or use your iPhone. But yeah, you can do that in addition. That's no problem.
Very good. Trish and Mary just wanted to make sure that you also have Waze on your list. I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Okay, so Alex has a question here that hasn't been asked yet. What about offer instructions?
Well, offer instructions, are allowed to be in the MLS. They can be added as an agent PDF. And so long as you don't have title information on the offer instructions, or commission information on the offer instructions that vary from what's in the MLS, then you can post it as an agent PDF.
Okay. Here we go. We had another question here. Cindy said, can you please talk about private per seller and why more agents aren't aware of it?
I don't know why more agents aren't aware of it, but private per seller is a property class that is used to put a listing into the MLS, but keep a sense of privacy. This was a property class that was created to address the situation that Clear Cooperation created, where there was a segment of listings that were never entered into the MLS at all, and they were marketed. And unfortunately, with Clear Cooperation, they are now required to be in the MLS regardless of their requirement for privacy. There's normally your high security client, your very private individual who may be in a public position or something of that sort, and they want to sell their home but don't want to be on the MLS. Now they have no choice. And private per seller was the area for those types of listings to land on. They don't get any marketing anywhere at all. They're not included in any data feeds to anything. They're just contained inside the MLS.
Okay. Makes sense. Cassie asked a question about room dimensions. Has there been any discussion about removing the room dimension requirement from listings? I feel like 9 times out of 10, the dimensions are inaccurate and not useful.
There's been no discussion about removing the room dimension requirement from listings. As long as I've been with HAR, room dimensions have been required. As far as the dimensions being inaccurate and not useful, report them. If the room dimensions are inaccurate, they are subject to being notified for a violation. Rule 1.2, which covers listing details, states that all information entered into the MLS must be accurate, and so this would be a clear violation.
Okay. Manu asked, why can't we have title info on the offer instructions if it's only available for agents' view?
It was a part of a rule change we made a couple years ago when wire fraud was on the rise, and we had been contacted by the FBI in regards to certain scams that were going on, and they found that the information in the scam was directly related to information from the MLS, specifically the agent remarks. So the showing instructions would be the next step, or the offer instructions would be the next step where that title information would be. So we made the step of prohibiting specific title information from being in the MLS. And so that would include the documents. Now you can say contact listing agent for title information in the agent remarks or your offer instructions. You just could not have the specific title information in there.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get back to some of the questions I have for you, because I think there are a few questions about Matrix features, but that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about next. I know there's been some recent updates to Matrix. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the recent updates?
Absolutely. So we talked last May when we did our last update. So since then, we did our annual database update and input form revisions. And the key changes that occurred there were we added an estimated active date that was added as a new field for the coming soon status, so you could more clearly say when you plan on going active. And the other was the bathroom description values were overhauled to make sure that it was clear whether the feature was for a primary bathroom or a secondary bathroom. And we did that because apparently there was some complaints coming in that the bathroom descriptions were the client was assuming that if you said double sinks, that it was for all the bathrooms in the house. And we felt that that's unfair, and we decided to clear that up. And we do an annual database update every year after we take our member suggestions and feedback, and we update them. And it's quite a process, because we also have to update the input forms and all the form vendors and then all the websites that are related to it and get all of that in place, which is why we do it once a year. After that, we added the additional layer for the second middle school for certain school districts, specifically Conroe ISD, that auto-populates listings of that second middle school, and it's searchable. So if your clients wanting to look for that intermediate school, it's now there for you to use. We also added the appointment phone description field. We added showing time and showing smart and other showing service so that you could clearly identify the showing service your listing is using. And then we implemented business rules to prevent the wrong phone number from being put on to each value. After that, we added the Trek HOA link to be added as an external link. That's the new link that in the past legislative session, required all the HOAs to be registered. And so now we have a link in the external links for you to go and directly access that information as that database builds. Then the big thing, Matrix in Spanish was rolled out on December 15th. This allows you to operate Matrix in Spanish natively, but more importantly, this allows you to send the client portal to your client in Spanish if that's their preferred language. And we translated almost 20,000 different words and phrases throughout the Matrix system to make it as good as possible for them. And we welcome feedback on that. That was only rolled out 2 months ago. So any feedback or concerns with the language that's being used, please let us know and we will take a look. And then in January, we rolled out a long-awaited feature, which was to finally auto-populate school district from the map. And this is similar to the market area and MLS area and school fields. And now that that's gone, this improvement wipes out the number 4 violation in the MLS. Last year, we sent out 5,000 correction notices for inaccurate school district, and this year it's going to be 0.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. There was actually a question about, can you talk about the Spanish version of Matrix? So I'm glad that you already did. And you mentioned how many phrases that were translated?
Almost 20,000.
Almost 20,000 phrases. I think anybody who's gone to Google and tried to translate something can tell you that sometimes those translations don't really make sense. So I think it's wonderful that you welcome feedback if maybe somebody encounters a translation that doesn't quite make sense. So wonderful. Thank you.
I just want to add to that. We did not use Google Translate to translate the 20,000 words and phrases. We worked with a consulting firm that specializes in this. I don't want our members to think we, threw words into a free translation product.
No. Yeah, we definitely didn't. This is not related to MLS, but Rosa is just mentioning, I don't know if you have any information on this, but if you know of if Taki's department has any intentions to now have a Spanish version of the client experience rating.
I don't know, but as Taki would always say, be not yet. We're always open to features. MLS and technology, we're very receptive to our members' feedback. And if you send an email to support@har.com stating a request for client experience rating to be offered in Spanish, I could see that being put on the board because that is a great idea to offer the survey in multilingual. More than Spanish, because the survey doesn't change. I could see us easily using more languages that are common to our consumers.
Very good. Thank you.
It's a great idea.
Great idea. So before we get into some features that are coming in Matrix, we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to breeze through a lot of these as quickly as we can. Sherry said, is there a specific place in condo townhome to put parking instructions for agents?
Not at this time.
Okay.
You would need to, if you could submit that as a suggestion, or I could take a screenshot of this, we can add that to our list of suggestions that we review at the MLS advisory group for potentially a new field for our members to make use of. It's an idea I haven't heard before.
Yeah. Great suggestion. Thank you, Sherry. Heather said, is there a way to search for any bedroom down and not the bedroom not have to specifically be primary or non-primary? So just any bedroom down.
There should be in the bedroom descriptions field. Let's see. There is one bedroom down, not primary bedroom, is a searchable value in the bedroom description. And if you want more than one, there's also 2 bedrooms down, and then all bedrooms down.
Very good.
As searchable values there for you right now.
All right. And speaking of stories, there was a question. There it is. Rubina said, is there clarification for 1.5 versus 2-story homes? I see this added incorrectly when the home should be 1.5 and it's listed as 2 stories.
It is a troublesome issue here. And a lot of times we leave that to what the tax record says to identify if it's 1.5 or 2. And we've even seen the tax record isn't clear itself, where we see a loft and there's no bedroom upstairs, which in most people would agree that's a 1.5 story. You'll see the CAD will say it's 2. And then they auto-populate 2. and then we complain and tell them that it should be 1.5, and they say they auto-populated from the tax record, and now we're stuck between a rock and a hard place because we don't try to override what the tax system auto-populates. We then encourage the owner to get it corrected with the tax record.
Right.
But generally speaking, a 1.5 story is normally one that does not actually have a bedroom upstairs, a bedroom and bathroom upstairs. It just has an open area, like either a game room or an open loft. But again, as the tax record shows, that's subject to interpretation.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for that question, Rubina. Let's see. There's a plethora of different topics here, so I wanted to try to get close to what we were talking about. Ashley had another question for us. Can we add a flood zone filter? Now, I know this is something that's been asked so many times, but can you just give us the explanation here on the reasoning that this hasn't been approved in the past?
I mean, it comes down to legal liability, is what it comes down to. And knowing those maps, if you know the FEMA maps, and you want to rely on the FEMA maps, you also have to understand that many of those FEMA maps in the Houston area are more than 10 years old. And if you've lived in Houston for the past 10 years, you know that that's not right. There's areas in this town that have flooded several times in the past 10 years that currently say they're in flood zone X. And that would be inaccurate at best to say that. And those maps aren't updated timely, as FEMA has a Herculean task of having maps for the entire country and trying to update those maps. And then there's exceptions on those maps that aren't conveyed. And we've discovered that in various pockets around the Cy-Fair area and the Cypress area, where it says it's an AE, which is a high risk of flood, but there's an exception carved out, but only in writing on FEMA's website, that it says that this neighborhood's actually flood X. But they won't update that change until they publish the next map. This is just a couple examples of why the flood zone filter is not the best of ideas. It's a good reference point to get an idea for things, but nothing changes a flood zone determination that's done, in real time or, by a person. And the legal liability of the listing side to take on that either benefit or detriment, depending on where their property is zoned, is unfair.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that explanation. I know that's a question that we get a lot, but it's been discussed multiple times in the past.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure that we got an answer there. Very good. So a few other questions, and actually I know this is another question that you get pretty often. Both Manaz and Sherry wanted to know, is there a way that we can have two pages open in Matrix at one time? And I know that there is. Can you briefly explain it?
Certainly. I could swear you and I actually discussed this topic just 2 weeks ago.
I think I need to create a short tutorial video just so everybody understands.
A 30-second video to point to is going to be ideal here. So in your browser, so the answer is absolutely you can. And you always have been able to. And it's just a matter of knowing the exact steps to do. So if you are in your browser and you see your Matrix tab, if you right-click on your Matrix tab, select the option that says Duplicate. If you use Duplicate, it's going to open up another tab in your browser of Matrix. And you can do your own separate searches in there all you want. And in a given day, me and my team, we have between 4 and 20 different tabs open as we change gears with every phone call or email or issue, so that we can freeze what we were working on and then move on to something else and come back later. And it absolutely works. The only time that it will break is if it's been more than 4 hours, because the timeout in Matrix is 4 hours of inactivity, or you go back to the members only portal and you click on Enter Matrix MLS.
Okay.
Because when you click on that Enter Matrix MLS button, you're creating a new session. And that's going to wipe out everything else that was in your browser prior to that moment.
Okay. Very good. Natalie just said, cool, it worked. So very good.
Nothing like real-time confirmation. I love it.
Thank you for explaining that. And to clarify, Martin was asking where that video is. That video has not been created, but I think that's a video that we should go ahead and create, just to make it easier for our members to understand how to do that. So very good. Thank you, Sherry, for asking that question. we have a lot more questions, and I know we're getting close on time here. Actually, we're over time here, so we're gonna just breeze through some of these questions. And I also want to talk about some upcoming features in Matrix that I think our members are going to be really excited about. I know there is a handicap access field. Can you just tell us what category that's under? Melissa's asking.
If you use the external, the interior features field, there is a disabled access value that you can use right now. And then under exterior, there's also, I believe, maybe not, wheelchair access.
Okay.
Wheelchair access is under for exterior, so that way you can identify the interior feature and the exterior feature for that.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. So going back to flooding really quick, Kelly, and I know this has also been discussed, but Kelly was asking about previously flooded. Can you give us some clarification as to why that is not a searchable field?
We want that to be on the seller's disclosure, and we want the seller to be the party responsible for conveying that information. And having it to be reviewed on the seller's disclosure means that it's just the seller conveying it, as opposed to it being on the listing where the listing agent is conveying it. This is a topic that was discussed several times at the MLS advisory group, and our legal counsel had recommended the best and only way for that to be conveyed is through the seller's disclosure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. And let's see, there was a question here about DOM. Keanu is asking, what's the best way to revise DOM back to day one? So I guess this would mean that there would be an issue. Well, maybe they mean after the period of time. Yeah.
So days on market to go back to one, there's only one way, and that's you have to relist the property. And if you're going to relist the property, you have to have a signed termination of listing agreement with your client and a new listing agreement that has a new start period. And you have to have that paperwork. In the event it's ever called to question, the MLS will request that documentation, and you have to have that. You have to have a document for every status change you make in the MLS, and there's no exceptions to that.
Okay, very good. Just a comment here from Martin. He said that the problem with those features, as far as wheelchair access, for example, is concerned, is if the agent doesn't add it in, it won't populate as searchable. But I think that's a good point to bring up for members that are listening here, because as a listing agent, the more information that you put in about that property, the easier it is for people to find, right?
Correct. I mean, Martin hits on the issue with a user entry database, right? You're reliant on the user to enter the information properly. As a good listing agent, you would want every characteristic of your home that you're listing to be in the MLS so that it's searchable. You may think, oh, they're not going to search by that kind of countertop. Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
They're not going to search by wheelchair access. Watch this video. You're going to see that Martin says that people are trying and they're not finding it. Mm-hmm. That's the crux of it. And a listing agent should put everything in there, because every field is searchable related to the house. So it means every value is. So you should put everything you can accurately into the MLS.
Absolutely. And also remember, it's not just members that are searching, MLS subscribers searching within the MLS. This is consumer searching on har.com and the har.com app as well.
And to elaborate on his point, if someone complains about omission, so say they didn't put in the wheelchair access, what we do as the MLS is we will email the listing agent to say, it looks like you have wheelchair access for your home. Here's where the value is, and we suggest that you add it so that members and consumers can find it, because it's not necessarily a violation to omit something like that, but we encourage them to put it in.
Okay. All right. Very good. So let's talk about some upcoming features in Matrix. What can we expect to see in Matrix in the near future?
Well, one of the things that's really, really close to releasing is new integrations with Showing Smart. They're coming very soon. I mean, in fact, they're basically done. We're just waiting to do the right rollout for them. And it's going to add 2 new features into the MLS that I think members are going to really appreciate. The first one is setting up showing instructions from Add Edit. So you've added a listing as incomplete and you want to set up your showing instructions before you make your listing active. On your confirmation screen, you're going to see a new link that says Add Showing Instructions to Showing Smart. this is going to take that listing and pull up the showing instructions in Showing Smart, even if you've just saved the listing as incomplete. So you could have just created this listing, just saved it. You hit that link, it will still bring it in and allow you to create the showing instructions right then and there so that it's already ready before your listing is made active. The second feature that we're looking to roll out is one that's been requested several times now, is scheduling showings for multiple listings inside Matrix. And so what you'll be able to do is check, say, 6 listings and then click on a new button added on the search results that says Showing Smart. And when you click on that, it's going to ask you, do you want to request a showing for those listings or create a tour? So it's also going to let you create a tour that will be optimized based on the listings you've selected and the address that you've put in for the start point. And then you can schedule the showings and you have a buyer's tour and your showings from one spot. We hope to have this rolled out in the next couple weeks, if not sooner. But we will have a post in Matrix, the news and alerts, as soon as it's available for use.
That is very exciting. Yeah.
Absolutely. The next feature that we're looking to roll out in March is the down payment resource integration. This is going to be a new button that's added on the listing detail reports that will tell you whether there's down payment resources available for that property. The company is downpaymentresource.com, and they're going to backfill into our system properties. They're going to be scanning them every day to see if they qualify for down payment programs. And if they do, when you click on the link, it'll show you that information and allow you to kind of use that as a lead or to as another tool for you with your client. We will have more information about that when it rolls out in March. We're excited to get that feature out there, especially in this market where appreciation is a day-to-day thing that's affecting buyers and purchasing properties.
Very good.
The next one that I'm excited about is the new Matrix search. I know I mentioned it earlier. It's been delayed, but we know that it's in a couple markets now. It's a new Matrix search, and this is almost a callback to Fusion users. If you liked Fusion, this new version of search is going to be exactly what you've been waiting for almost 5 years. It's going to have the search on the left column, the results on the bottom, and the map on the top, and you can customize the fields and move them around. And if you don't like it, there's a button at the bottom that says go back to the old mode. So that we're not taking anything away. We're just adding a new, more modern way to search for properties.
All right.
Going quickly, the last thing is map layer revisions. We're going to be updating all of our map layers to address concerns that our members express. Y'all report errors on school boundaries and other boundaries, and we make sure to address them as often as we can. And then we have our annual school boundary update that'll be by May or June.
Okay.
And finally, we always work with the key, so we're looking forward to more integrations with his tools inside the Matrix system to make for a better experience for our members.
Okay, very good. Martin's asking, is there going to be a class that details some of these new features?
They should be incorporated in the Matrix courses, and we will be working with the education department to make sure that the relevant course is updated with that information so that it is easily accessible.
Very good. Thank you for going through those with us, Nathan. I know our members appreciate it. Speaking of just education, Floor's saying, and I lost the question here, but she was asking, how is it that members can better learn the appropriate way to describe a property? I mean, I know that's not necessarily something that's in a class. Is this something that would be more of within your brokerage type of training? Or
yeah, to me that sounds. I mean, the first answer that came to mind was experience. Is the number one. So that then leads to mentoring, which should be with your broker. Your broker should either offer a mentoring type program or work with you directly to help you on learning how to better describe a property. Because over time, you're going to master that. You work with enough homes, you work with enough people, you get a feel for how you want to say things and convey things. But when you first start out, I would be working closely with your broker or office manager, or if you have a mentor in there to help you work that out.
Okay. Very good. So Nathan, I see there have been a lot of suggestions in the comments. I haven't been able to get all of them. You have 2 people asking for key maps back into the system. So
it's there.
With that in mind, how can members submit feedback and suggestions for Matrix?
There's a few ways to submit feedback. The best way is to click on the link at the top of Matrix called feedback. There's a link up there. It opens up a form for you to answer a few questions, and then it's entered into our system for review. Every single item that comes through this channel is reviewed for consideration, and many of the changes that have occurred in Matrix are a direct result of this. Other ways that members can report feedback is emailing the general MLS QA at har.com or giving us a phone call and conveying it to us that way. The reason why we prefer it written is so that we can follow up with you in case we have more questions or we want to get more information about what it is we're trying to add to the system.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you for that. And Nathan, I know we went way over our time with you today, but we just had so many questions for you, and we always love getting these updates. Is there anything else that you want our members to hear today?
I know that Sean and I say it a lot, but we're very thankful for our members. We can't thank our members enough for all the feedback that's submitted to us, positive, neutral, or negative. It all is in the effort to make the best system, and our MLS would not be the best MLS in the country without your input. So please keep it coming.
All right. Well, thank you again for your time today, Nathan. I truly appreciate it. That is it for this Member Focus Monday. So we will see you next Monday at 9 a.m. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.